I did a hardcore Nuzlocke of the advanced difficulty ROM hack Pokémon Renegade Platinum, but this time with a twist. I asked viewers to vote for up to 10 Pokémon to ban from my playthrough, and after recording over 70,000 votes, the top 50% of all Pokémon were wiped from existence. Gone are the Renegade Platinum staples that us Nuzlockers so crucially rely on, and in their place are these guys. In a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's dead forever, and since I can only catch one eligible teammate per unique encounter table, every Pokemon matters no matter how lousy they may seem. But wait, there's more. I decided that for an extra challenge, setup moves were banned and EVs were completely turned off. So, let's get started. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Our journey begins on Route 201, where Professor Rowan offers us the choice of 3 effectively empty Pokeballs. A starter has never survived the purge of a Snaplock, and in its 5th iteration, that remains painfully true. I choose Chimchar so that my rival Thanos will have Piplup, and thus a more manageable team when we face him later down the road. Our first actual encounter is the Eevee sitting in my mom's kitchen. In general, Snaplock bans encompass an entire evolution line. So, for example, since Gyarados, Garchomp, and Glysaur were banned, Magikarp, Gible, and Gligar were also banned. But split evolutions were separated in the polls, meaning that even though Vaporeon, Jolteon, Umbreon, and Espeon are all banned, Cosmo can still be used as long as he evolves into Flareon, Leafeon, or Glaceon. So now that we've got our unofficial starter, Harambe gets the boot, and I can start collecting my fair share of teammates. One of the best things about Drayano's ROM hack is that most Pokemon have received some sort of buff, whether that be an improved move pool, a new typing, a different ability, or even increased base stats. So many would-be garbage Pokemon are much more useful than they are in the baseline games, and some Pokemon turned into absolute powerhouses, which is why almost 700 people voted to ban Love Disc. Yeah, Love Disc got more than twice as many votes as Sharpedo, a psychic immune carnivore with speed boost. Renegade Platinum Love Disc is no laughing matter. Peach's legacy lives on. Anyways, thanks to the phenomenally diverse encounter pools in this game, nearly every single route has at least one Snaplock eligible encounter. So by the time we've made it to Oreburgh City, my roster is already 13 Pokemon deep. But there's one soldier that shines brighter than the rest, and it's none other than Cap, the adamant-natured adaptability Corefish. That's right, baby, the Corefish Core are back and better than ever. Now, as a reminder, this is an advanced difficulty ROM hack, with enemy trainers getting completely revamped and supercharged teams. But you wouldn't know it from the fight against Rourke, because by using Aqua Jet, Steve is able to straight up delete his entire team. With adaptability, the normally 40 base power priority move hits rock types with 160 base power. And like IGN reviewing the Hoenn remakes, that's simply too much water for Rourke's Pokemon to handle. The one exception is his lead Nose Pass, but with only Shockwave as an attacking move, Sandwoman the Sandshrew deals with him by dishing out damage with Bulldoze and removing Stealth Rocks with Rapid Spin until the Big Nose Boulder goes down. After that, though, it's a total sweep by Cap, and just a few short turns later, the very first gym badge is ours. That was shockingly easy, but the game—
Would you say it's as easy as shopping with Zen Market?
What? No, I wouldn't say that. That's not a thing that normal people say to each other, Garchomp FJ. Like, I know you're trying to do an ad segue, but it's gotta be natural. There's an art to crafting an elegant and tastefully subtle ad segue, and you butchered it.
Gee, Flygon HG, I didn't realize you had such a high standard.
Well, I bet you also didn't realize that you can buy from over 10,000 Japanese online stores with the sponsor of this video, Zen Market. What?
With Zen Market, you can shop from online stores like Rakuten, Amazon Japan, Mercari, and more, all in one place. Just enter whatever you're looking for and shop to your heart's content. Or if you've already found an item you want to buy on another Japanese site, simply copy the item page's URL into Zen Market's search bar and they'll walk you through the rest. Zen Market is a proxy service, which means that they purchase your products directly from the Japanese seller and then consolidate them for easy international shipments. They'll even provide free storage for 60 days so that you can shop for more stuff before packaging. And with 19 supported languages, 24-hour customer service, and detailed guides on how to best navigate Zen Market's interface, you can rest assured knowing that you're in great hands. So if you're interested in shopping for unique and authentic Japanese products, head to the link in the description down below and register with Zen Market for free. And using my promo code FlygonHG, new members can get 1,000 Zen points to be used for international shipping fees. Thanks so much to Zen Market for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. With the first gym badge obtained, it's off to Eterna City, and along the way, we pick up a few more encounters featuring straight bangers like Shocker, the minus special attack natured Electrike, Electro, the minus speed natured Plusle, and Taskmaster, the minus attack natured Nincada. Good thing these Pokemon aren't extremely mediocre, because otherwise these natures would make things significantly harder. Oh wait, the bad luck continues with Nebula, the 3-attack IV'd Poliwag, which I can only evolve into Poliwrath, and Moondragon, the 1 special attack IV'd Impish Swablu. This is pretty brutal. But fortunately, even with my genetically impaired Pokemon, I'm not too worried about Gardenia. We have a couple of heavy hitters that check all of her Pokemon, though there is one notable and particularly thorny exception in her Technician Roserade. She hits like a truck full of roses, and I don't have a way to kill her quickly. My Pokemon are either too slow or too weak, and nothing resists all 4 of her attacking moves. Our best bet is to risk a crit and pray. Against her lead Blossom, I lead with Echo the Chimecho, who knows Taunt to prevent any Stun Spore or Teeter Dance tomfoolery. We can then hit Blossom with a Yawn and deal just a bit of damage with Extra Sensory before safely switching out to Modok the Masquerain. With the chip from Echo, a Signal Beam gets the KO and brings in Tangela, though she too immediately dies to a Signal Beam. Breloom comes in third, so it's off to arguably the best Breloom counter in the game, Groot the Exeggutor. It's a small miracle that Groot survived the ban, but the likes of Delibird and Unknown did not. The community really went AWOL with some of their votes. Groot's holding a Chesto Berry to avoid Spore, so she's safe to get the kill with Extra Sensory, bringing in Gardenia's Beast of an Ace. I switch to Sandwoman on a resisted Sludge, which then baits Magical Leaf to give me a moderately safe switch to Taskmaster the Ninjask, the only one of my Pokemon that manages to outspeed here. But since he can't get the kill with an Aerial Ace, I gotta go for an 80 base power Leech Life, which gives me just enough HP to survive a Sludge, even if it poisons. Though obviously, if Roserade crits here, we lose Taskmaster. But she doesn't. Our little prince pulls through and on the following turn takes the KO with a super effective Aerial Ace. And by using Leech Life to take care of Cherumin Grottle, we've defeated Gardenia and won the 2nd gym badge of Renegade Platinum. Now, you may have noticed that I skipped over a few mini-boss fights here, and I'm not mentioning every single encounter I get. That's because there's a lot to cover in this game, so to save time, I'll only be hitting the most important points in the playthrough. But if you want to see every single mini-boss fight in detail, check out the Snaplock playlist on my highlights channel, because I got to use some really fun Pokemon and some pretty unique strategies in this playthrough. Anyways, perhaps the most infamous mini-boss battle in the entire game is the fight against Aaron right before you enter Hearthome City. Dre conceived of this fight as a fun surprise intended to unexpectedly rock the player by throwing a member of the Elite Four at them far too early in the game. You don't actually even need to win this fight to keep progressing. According to the creator of the game himself, you're kinda supposed to lose this fight. But Nuzlockers, being the masochistic sickos they are, rejected that notion entirely, instead choosing to make this battle a brutal box check before fully diving into the mid-game. Though all 6 of Aaron's Pokemon are scary in their own way, by far the most difficult Pokemon to deal with is his Drapion. With the ability Sniper, Drapion's critical hits do triple damage instead of the usual double, and with a held Scope Lens, Night Slash and Cross Poison have a 25% chance of landing a crit. Add to that a 95 base speed stat with a plus speed nature, phenomenal natural bulk, and only a single weakness to ground type moves, and you've got a truly monstrous threat. Plus, Drapion knows Swords Dance to boost his attack stat, meaning that even Pokemon who manage to resist his stab attacks are still gonna get cooked by a sniper boosted crit. The variability caused by sniper crits and potential Swords Dance boosts makes it extremely difficult to craft a reliable battle plan for Aaron. The usual method for dealing with this fight is setting up Monferno or Torterra against Aaron's lead Dustox and then sweeping his entire team. But because we don't have Monferno or Torterra, and even if we did, setup moves are banned, my strategy is far worse and significantly riskier. As we face off against Renegade Platinum's first major run ender, there's a very real chance that this could be the downfall of Attempt 1. Against the aforementioned lead Dustox, I send in my Armaldo, the Thing. He has Swift Swim instead of Battle Armor, so unfortunately he's not a reliable answer to Drapion, but with a held Petra Berry, he's able to safely set up a Stealth Rock before switching into Iron Man the Mawile, one of just 2 steel types that survived the snap. And even with a respectable stat buff, Iron Man's Steel Fairy typing and Intimidate ability are the predominant reasons that he's so useful. Dustox can only deal damage to Iron Man with Bug Buzz, but still manages to do a solid chunk of damage due to a special defense drop followed by a critical hit before we can take him out. Not the greatest start, and that immediately brings in Drapion, so it's time to enact my frankly horrendous plan. The goal is to bring in She-Hulk the Kingler, who can't be crit thanks to her Shell Armor ability. But unfortunately, our Crustacean needs 2 hits to get the KO, which means Drapion will have 3 chances to attack. So I need to first lower Drapion's attack with Intimidate. Since Drapion doesn't see the kill on Iron Man here, he goes for a Swords Dance before we hit him with a Taunt, so that he can't keep going for Swords Dance. Then I switch to Agatha the Houndoom to drop his attack with Intimidate, as Drapion fires off a resisted Night Slash that thankfully doesn't crit. Agatha now baits Cross Poison, so that gives me a fully safe switch to Iron Man for another Intimidate. Unfortunately, Taunt wears off, so now I gotta Taunt again, but this time, instead of setting up another Swords Dance, Aaron goes for a critical hit Night Slash, which we survive thanks to our Fairy typing. Then I go back to Agatha, which of course risks another critical hit, but she dodges it again. That means Drapion is at -1 attack, and by switching to Iron Man on another Cross Poison, he quickly falls to -2. Taunt does wear off again, though now, barring any unlucky misses, we should have this sealed up, because now I can bring in She-Hulk as Drapion sets up Swords Dance to get back to neutral attack. But with that free guaranteed switch, She-Hulk is moderately safe for a few turns. Drapion goes for another Swords Dance as we connect with a massive Crab Hammer to bring him into the yellow. Aaron then fires off a nasty +2 Cross Poison, but She-Hulk lives with 11 HP and kills Drapion with a second Crab Hammer. That was extremely risky, but that's what happens when you're left with the bottom of the barrel. Oh, and Aaron still has 3 more Pokemon, the first being Beautifly. Because She-Hulk's sitting in the red, we're now baiting a random move, so I don't have a single safe switch. But my best bet is going to Ego the Glalie, who's now part Rock type. A high roll Energy Ball would have been a disaster, but since it's just an Air Slash, we can take the KO with a priority Ice Shard. Against Scizor, I switch to Torch the Magmortar on a Bullet Punch, and then retaliate with a Lava Plume for an easy kill. So last is Venomoth, but we're still not out of the woods because a critical hit Sludge Bomb will absolutely kill my deceptively frail Fire type.
All right, here's what you're gonna do, Venomoth. You're gonna Sleep Powder because you don't know that I have Vital Spirit and you don't see the kill. That's exactly what you're gonna do, okay? Are we on the same page? Venomoth, let's see it. No, 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 no. Yes! Yes! Woo! Let's go!
Against all odds, we've managed to beat Aaron and make it to Hearthome City completely deathless. Lady Luck was absolutely on our side for that fight, but that can change in a heartbeat and we've got a lot of game left to go. If you've enjoyed the video so far, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. You might think you're already subscribed, but there's a good chance you're not and it helps me out a ton. Anyways, the fight against Fantina is next, and if you've seen my previous Renegade Platinum videos, you'll know that there's a surefire way to beating this extremely difficult team by using Captivate with an Umbreon to repeatedly lower the special attack of Fantina's lead Drifblim until she baton passes out to Mismagius. From there, Torterra is free to set up and sweep her entire team. But since we again don't have Umbreon or Torterra or setup, we need to do things differently. For nearly identical reasons as Aaron's Drapion, Fantina's Mismagius is a massive threat. She hits super hard for this point in the game, she has great coverage, she's almost guaranteed to be faster than everything other than Ninjask, and she has setup with Calm Mind to punish reckless switches. So clearly I need an answer to Mismagius, and my plan is a bastardized version of the Umbreon Captivate strats. Instead of using Umbreon, I'll be using Torch the Magmortar, basically the only one of my Pokemon that satisfies the 3-point checklist of needing to survive a hit or two from Drifblim, baiting in Mismagius next, and being male so that we can actually captivate Drifblim. Things immediately go awry as Drifblim's first Shadow Ball gets a special defense drop. As a result, if Drifblim now crits through Captivate, Torch is probably dead. On the following turn, Drifblim goes for a Calm Mind as I have Torch use Rock Tomb. The idea here is that this will lower Drifblim's speed and ultimately also Mismagius' speed once Fantina goes for Baton Pass. But Torch, being the tryhard jackass he is, crits with Rock Tomb, activating Drifblim's Starf Berry, which gives her a +2 boost to her speed. Objectively a terrible turn, though at the very least the Starf Berry didn't give Drifblim +2 defense or special attack. That would have effectively been game over. Instead, this is now just much more annoying. Fantina heals, and even though Drifblim manages to get another special defense drop, she never gets a critical hit, and eventually does indeed baton pass out to Mismagius. So from here, I can bring in She-Hulk, aka Torterra at home. We obviously can't set up a sweep, but thanks to Shell Armor, we're free to take out Mismagius with the combo of Rock Tomb and Crab Hammer. With the biggest threat defeated, now we just gotta deal with Fantina's 5 other Pokemon. Drifblim comes back in, so I tank the guaranteed critless Shadow Ball and hit her with a knockoff, which is just shy of the KO. Gotta love having 5 attack IVs. I switch to Psylocke the Skuntank, who's able to outspeed and get the kill with a Night Slash on the following turn. That brings in Gengar third, so first I bring in Iron Man on a resisted Dazzling Gleam. Then it's off to Wolverine the Zangoose, who's immune to Shadow Ball, but he now baits Sludge Bomb, which Iron Man is immune to, meaning that by repeatedly switching between these two underappreciated Hoenn exports, I can completely stall Gengar out of Shadow Ball PP. Now, you might notice that Iron Man is asleep here. That's so that Gengar can't hit either of my Pokemon with Will-O-Wisp, which would have caused too much residual damage for this stall strategy to work. But what's even cooler about this is that by intentionally inducing sleep on Iron Man with the move Rest, I can guarantee that he'll immediately wake up right when I need him to. You probably know that using Rest always ensures 2 turns of sleep, but you might not know that sleep turns are carried from battle to battle. So by using Rest in a battle against, say, an underleveled wild Pokemon, and then burning those first 2 turns of Rest Sleep in that same battle, you can run away and enter another battle with a Pokemon that is guaranteed to wake up on the very next turn. In this case, it means that Iron Man can avoid getting burned during the stall and then immediately wake up to hit Gengar with a crunch as soon as she's out of Shadow Ball PP. I'll be consistently using this pre-rest strategy throughout the playthrough to drastically reduce the chances of getting screwed by random RNG. Anyways, Gengar does manage to finally burn Iron Man before going down, but that's fine because against Dusclops, I can just use another rest to remove the burn. And then Wolverine, who also knows rest if and when we get hit by Will-O-Wisp, can take the kill on the bulky ghost with just a few knockoffs. Though, well, let's just throw it to past Flygon to show what happens next.
What comes out next? I'm not even paying attention at this point. Is that risky? I mean, it's Bane It. Yeah, I'm gonna just stay in for this, I guess. right? How much does Sucker Punch crit do? At most 90. Sorry, Chief. Oh shit, that is a Spiritomb. Uh-oh, don't crit. Oh my god, I think I just threw off this crit. Oh! Okay, well that was stupid. That is not a Bayonet.
Well, that was embarrassing, but once again, Lady Luck bailed me out. And a few short turns later, both fake Bayonet and the real Bayonet are defeated, winning us the 3rd gym badge completely deathless. But you know what? Lesson learned. This is not the run to recklessly cut corners. I've got to stay vigilant at every turn, because just one single death has the potential to snowball into a full-blown wipe. Before making our way to Veilstone City, Renegade Platinum features a detour to the Pokemon Mansion on Route 212 for some Team Galactic shenanigans. This sub-arc culminates in a fairly tricky multi-battle that pits you and your rival against Commander Saturn and Mr. Backlot. But despite my rival's best efforts to throw the fight, we make it through unscathed. Though the road to Veilstone is long, it's fairly uneventful other than a handful of new encounters. Most random trainers are still pretty easy at this point in the game, with the exception being the occasional random ace trainer. And on Route 215, there happen to be 2 blocking our exit. Maya and Dennis are set up as a double battle here, but by talking to them individually, you can take them on one at a time. So even though their teams are pretty strong, you can just prep your team of 6 to specifically counter one trainer's 3 Pokemon, and then do the same for the other. Of course, that requires making the long trek back to Salacion Town to access the PC, which I, expert Nuzlocker that I am, was apparently way too lazy to do. So instead, I thought it best to fight them both with the same team of 6. Dennis is perfectly fine. Cosmo, the powerhouse of the early game, is fast enough to outspeed and one-shot Gligar with Ice Beam. Shocker can switch into Gyarados on a bounce before killing with Discharge. And then finally, Drifblim is whittled away by Scream the Licky Licky, though it is actually Psylocke who comes in to finish things off with a Night Slash. See, no problem. But Maya, well, Maya gets a bit trickier. After a yawn assist from Echo, Cosmo once again takes out our enemy's lead, which this time is Lickitung. Against Gardevoir, I switch to Psylocke on a Psychic and then take the kill with a single Poison Jab, which leaves just Roserade, who foolishly I have 0 answers for. Or rather, I thought I had an answer in the form of Cosmo, who can outspeed in one shot, but with Glaceon's Renegade Platinum stat rebalance, Cosmo has pretty lousy special defense now and gets completely cooked on the switch. I was hoping that Roserade would come out before Gardevoir and we would have just gotten the kill like that, but clearly that's not what happened. The reason this Roserade is so tricky is that she knows Weather Ball, which in Route 215's Permanent Rain turns into a 150 base power water type move. Nebula the Poliwrath with Water Absorb notwithstanding, nothing in my current party survives a critical hit. So my best bet is to stay in with Psylocke and hope for the best. We outspeed, and despite our minus attack nature, Poison Jab looks like it'll be enough for a 2-shot thanks to our held Poison Barb. But Roserade hits us with a Stun Spore, meaning that we now need to dodge the crit and hit through Paralysis. Can Psylocke do it? She cannot. So, after making it through Gardenia, Aeron, and Fantina completely deathless, I lose my very first Pokemon against Ace Trainer Maya. Not my best moment, but as a great man once said, it's what it's. All we can do is mourn Psylocke's death and move on. By finally making it to the great city of Veilstone, we get access to a bunch of new TMs and items, including unlimited Focus Sash from the Game Corner and a Choice Band from this random dude on Route 214. These resources are right in time for the fight against the 4th gym leader Maylene, who has an extremely powerful team of fighting types anchored by an overcooked adaptability Lucario. Remember the damage that adaptability Cap the Corphish did against Rourke? Well, now imagine Cap has better stats across the board, a better typing, and a Focus Sash. Maylene leads with Medicham, and I lead with Ego, who conveniently learns Protect by level up and baits High Jump Kick, causing Medicham to crash and activate her Citrus Berry. On the next turn, I switch to Gwen the Bayonet, one of only 2 eligible ghost types in this run. And for good reason, because Gwen is horrible, but her fighting and normal type immunities go a long way in making her useful. Thanks to Medicham Citrus Berry, the second high jump kick crash doesn't kill, but fortunately we can just finish her off with a priority Shadow Sneak. That brings in the dreaded Lucario second, so I switch to Vulture the Shiftry on a resisted Dark Pulse. Fake Out breaks the Focus Sash, and then it's a hard switch to Dust the Doug Trio, who miraculously manages to survive an adaptability boosted Aura Sphere. I mean, she's holding a Focus Sash, so that was always safe, but I'm genuinely stunned that something as flimsy as a Doug Trio managed to naturally survive that hit. Anyways, Dust is one of the few snap-locking counters with a modicum of speed, so she's able to take out Lucario with an Earthquake, which was a damage roll by the way, because our underground Menage a Trois has 0 attack IVs. I'm sure it's just negativity bias, but the IVs of the Pokemon in this run seem exceptionally bad. Maylene sends out Toxicroak third, and unfortunately she knows Sucker Punch, so even though we do kill with Earthquake, I can't risk it. Instead, it's a switch to Iron Man on a Drain Punch, and from here I switch between Gwen on Drain Punches and back to Iron Man on Ice or Sucker Punches, getting off Intimidates in the process. Iron Man does get frozen because I didn't have the foresight to induce pre-sleep with Rest, but that's ultimately fine. Once Toxicroak is out of Drain Punch PP, it's safe to bring in Ego and take the kill with an Earthquake, followed up by a priority Ice Shard. That brings in Infernape fourth, so baiting close combat, I swap to Moondragon, the Dragon Fairy Altaria. And here, Moondragon's job is to spam Roost, as Infernape goes for seemingly completely random moves until his Life Orb chip brings him low enough for a Moonblast to take the KO. It does end up working perfectly, though it wasn't without risk. Rock Slide flinches, a burn from Fire Punch, or a poorly timed critical hit could have made things significantly harder, but with Moondragon still remarkably healthy, she's in the perfect position to deal with Machamp. Maylene protects to activate Machamp's Toxic Orbs, so I just go back to spamming Roost as the poison damage starts whittling away at our foe's HP. After a close combat and just a few turns of Poison Chip, Moondragon can take her second KO of the fight with another Moonblast. So all that's left is Gallade, but he too really can't do much damage to our fluffy bird. I have to be a little patient so as to avoid going down to a poorly timed critical hit, but a few turns later, Gallade falls and the 4th gym badge is ours. At this point, very little stands between us and the 5th gym leader in Pastoria City, other than the latest batch of encounters. But one stands out above the rest. It's been a long time since the channel's been blessed with a Beep Beep Pony. So long that many of you may not even be aware of the Beep Beep Pony lore. Thor, the OG Beep Beep Pony, carried us to greatness in the inaugural Brilliant Diamond Snaplock over 2 years ago. So I was ecstatic that Beep Beep Pony would be joining our elite Renegade Platinum roster as well.
Surely Rock Tomb doesn't kill here. Ah, Ultra Balls match her color scheme. What Marvel character are we naming this? There's Sleipnir is Odin's horse. That's a silly name. That's an absurdly silly name. That's silly, silly, silly. We'll just do Valkyrie. Valkyrie makes sense. You know, if we can catch this girl. You know, Giraffe Ridge. Yeah. All right. You know what? What do we think that is? Is that 33%? It probably is, right? So crit will kill. Yeah! Yeah! Have you tried your horse ball? The net? The dive ball because horses originated in the sea? Alright, one more, and then I'll throw out the old rock tomby. Oh my god, this is impossible! Okay.
Alright, well, time for Crasher Wake. The gimmick in this fight is that there's permanent rain set up at the start of the battle, though now that I've played this game a few times, I've found pretty reliable ways to get around that by abusing his lead Quagsire, and Echo is pretty much the perfect man for the job. He's fast enough to outspeed and set up a sunny day, which gets prolonged by our held Heat Rock. This halves the damage of Quagsire's Aqua Tail, so we can stay in to hit a yawn. The harsh sunlight also means that Quagsire's Ice Punches won't freeze any of my teammates, and as a result, it's safe to switch to Mary Jane the Wigglytuff. With Quagsire asleep, MJ can now set up the Stealth Rock needed to break Sharpedo's Focus Sash. Then it's back to Echo in case Quagsire wakes up. I spend a few turns here resetting the sun and hitting Quagsire with another yawn, but eventually it's back to MJ on another Ice Punch, who can then safely take the KO on the snoozing Mudfish with 2 Life Orb Moon Blasts. That brings in Gyarados second, so it's off to Nebula, an expert at killing all types of water noodles, as you'll see. Our ability makes us immune to Aqua Tail, Toxic deals residual damage, and Haze removes the boosts that Gyarados could otherwise stack up with Dragon Dance. The result is that Wake just continually clicks Dragon Dance until the Toxic takes him out. It's a bit cheap, but sometimes you gotta play dirty. Ludicolo is third, so that's a free switch to Taskmaster on a fake out. With the chip from Stealth Rock and Life Orb, a single Choice Band boosted Leech Life is enough to get the KO. And then that perfectly baits in Sharpedo fourth, who after getting his sash broken, also goes down to a single Leech Life. Floatzel's fifth, so Taskmaster clears the stage for Cap the Crawdon, who perfectly walls Floatzel. It's a bit scary coming in on an Ice Punch, but since there's no freeze, we can tank an Aqua Tail to the chest, and then retaliate with an adaptability boosted Crunch for the one-shot. All that's left is Wake's own Poliwrath, so it's off to Gwen on a Drain Punch. With a Focus Sash, we're safe to try and nail Poliwrath with a Will-O-Wisp, which successfully connects. And from there, it's an extremely unbalanced honor battle between gloved frogs. We trade off Drain Punches until Wake's Poliwrath falls, and victory is ours. Now, this next part of the game is fairly long, featuring several mini-boss fights of varying difficulty before we can make it to the next gym leader in Candice City. We don't have time to hit every fight. Again, check the highlights channel if you want to see some silly shit like Rogue the Corsola bodying an Entei, but I do want to show the Riley fight because it was a lot of fun. Against his lead Absol, I have Taskmaster nail him with a speedy choice-banded U-turn which KOs even without the crit. But crits are just how the hardest working bug in the West gets things done. No half measures for Taskmaster. I bring in Torch, which conveniently brings in Metagross, who I can quickly kill with a single flamethrower. Those things are always a pain to deal with, so that's pretty lucky. Lucario outspeeds, but since we now bait high jump kick, a Protect, followed by a switch into Gwen, brings him down to a Sliver. Unfortunately, Riley has an unexpected full restore here, so we need to steer out of this just a little bit. I stay in to tank a Meteor Mash, and by tank, I mean only survive thanks to our held Focus Sash. But this lets Gwen connect with a Will-O-Wisp to reduce the physical beast's massive damage output. So then it's a switch to Juggernaut the Relicanth on a random move that turns out to be a soft Bullet Punch, which means that baiting high jump kick, we can go for another Protect and watch Lucario crash to his death. Ursaring is third, so I bring in X23 the Toxicroak as Riley attempts a Protect to trigger his Flame Orb. A Fake Out on the next turn, followed by a Protect of my own, gets Ursaring low enough that a Drain Punch nets a clean KO. But that then brings in Riley's Power Herb Salamence. On the first turn, I let him burn his Power Herb by firing off a Fly that brings X23 down to her Sash. An Ice Punch isn't enough for the KO, especially after the Intimidate, but here's where the fun really begins, because it's off to Mary Jane the Dragon Killer. MJ knows Protect, which completely nullifies Salamence's Flies, the only attack that can do meaningful damage to our Rotom Fairy type. MJ is also holding a Quick Claw, which gives her a 20% chance to move first on any given turn. So all we gotta do is go for Moonblasts on the turn Salamence flies into the air, Protect when he comes down, and wait for Quick Claw to activate. Turns out it happens almost immediately, so just like that, MJ fells the Hawinian Dragon. Was Quick Claw Wigglytuff the best way to deal with Salamence? No, probably not. but it's a great example of why I love Snaplock so much. You get to come up with absolutely absurd strategies, and you gain a new appreciation for normally worthless Pokemon. I mean, that's sort of the point of Nuzlocks in general, I guess, but it's really exemplified in the Snaplock format. Like, in what other circumstance would I fight Renegade Platinum's Crasher Wake without a single electric or grass type? Anyways, we take care of Riley's Slaking the same way we take care of almost every other Slaking in the franchise, by using Protect. So, next up is Byron, though he's barely worth a mention. Any moderately good fire type trivializes his steel types, and Johnny Storm barely qualifies as moderately good. Actually, that's a little unfair to Torch because he can also learn Aura Sphere, which gets a cheeky one-shot on Aggron after we break his sash with Sandwoman Stealth Rock. It is Nebula who ends up taking the final KO of the fight against Bastiodon with a close combat, but with that, badge number 6 is ours. And then, after some random Team Galactic crap, we quickly find ourselves facing off against Candice for badge number 7. Her lead Abomasnow sets up permanent hail, but that doesn't stop Widow the Rapidash from roasting the Yeti like a chestnut on an open flame. Our pure fire typing baits in Wall Rain next, which provides the perfect opportunity to go for a sunny day. With a held Pasho Berry, we easily survive the now nerfed Surf that tries to drown my fiery cow. And then it's a switch to Nebula, who easily checks the bulky Walrus. A few Drain Punches later, Wall Rain falls, and Frostlass comes out third. I switch to Vulture, who's been pre-rested so that he doesn't get paralyzed by Thunderbolt on the switch. Then, with a guaranteed wake-up, we can get a clean KO via priority Sucker Punch. Glaceon's a bit tricky since he's holding a Bright Powder, so the first thing to do is stall out her 5 Blizzard PP via Protect, and then switches to our newest teammate Polaris the Probopass. Like Groot and Nebula, it's a small miracle that she survived the snap because her typing makes her an incredible defensive pivot. It's a shame we didn't get her until this late in the game, but clearly we did just fine without her. Anyways, once Glaceon's out of Blizzard PP, Kingpin the Haunchcrow is free to take him down with a few aerial aces that conveniently break through Bright Powder and double teams. It takes a few more hits than I'd like since Kingpin has, you guessed it, 0 attack IVs. He also has 1 speed IV, though that doesn't matter here. Weavile comes in 5th, so it's off to Iron Man on the Icicle Crash. A Swords Dance on the following turn is pretty scary since this thing's holding a Focus Sash, but I can safely switch to Nebula on an Ice Crash that misses, and then take the KO with a priority Vacuum Wave. So all that's left is Candice's Pasho Berry Holden Beefcake Mamoswine. And the plan here is to switch between Nebula and Kingpin until the massive Piggy is out of Earthquakes. This works great because Nebula baits Earthquake and Haunchcrow baits Avalanche. Or so I thought. Turns out the Avalanche AI is a little quirky. And by quirky, I mean dumb as f***, because for seemingly no reason, Mamoswine uses Avalanche against Nebula, which instantly kills Kingpin on the switch. Unfortunately, this is kind of my fault. I knew Avalanche AI was weird because I've seen it before. In fact, right before switching to Kingpin, I say this.
All right, here's hoping it doesn't do any weird shit with Avalanche.
So yeah, big mistake there, especially because Kingpin is one of my better Pokemon and my only flying type that isn't Taskmaster or the so far unused Mothim named Angel. Because of Kingpin's death, I now gotta risk a critical hit on Nebula, but since we live the hit, a close combat followed by a Vacuum Wave is enough to kill Mamoswine and win us the battle with just the 1 death. But more deaths are surely awaiting us as we make our way to Spear Pillar, where we'll be facing off against the hardest fights of the run so far. First is the 12v12 multi-battle against Jupiter and Saturn, a fight that often lives or dies based on how helpful my rival decides to be. As usual, the plan is to target down one side and hope for a little bit of good luck. Against the dual Crobat lead, I send out Cosmo, and my rival Thanos sends out Staraptor. Equipped with a Choice Scarf, Cosmo can nail Mars's Crobat with an Ice Beam for a clean one-hit kill. Jupiter's Crobat opts for a double team, which causes Staraptor to miss, so Bronzong comes in second for Mars, and anticipating a Gyro Ball, I switch to Agatha the Houndoom, whose Intimidate should render the physical Bell relatively useless. Crobat goes for another double team, and Staraptor uses U-Turn, which I've never seen him do in this fight. Thanos brings in Arcanine for another Intimidate, but then Bronzong goes off script with an Earthquake.
Okay, let's hope it doesn't crit.
Bad start, guys. Bad start. Oh, and fun fact, that's now 3 deaths, all of them dark types. From here, I decide to bring Cosmo back in, certain that our starter is not making it out of this fight alive. Unfortunately, our Ice Beam misses, so that side of the field is starting to get really out of hand, especially with Crobat setting up a third double team. But at the very least, Thanos fells Bronzong with a single Flare Blitz before they can do any more damage. Yanmega comes in next, so I take another quick kill with Ice Beam. Crobat then goes for a 4th double team, and Arcanine misses his Flare Blitz, so I'm not loving that. But hey, we're halfway through Mars's team at least, though she does bring in Electivire next, which is probably her scariest Pokemon. I decide to switch to Angel the Mothim, which is almost certainly setting him up to be this fight's second death. Crobat uses double team number 5, but then Thanos proves why evasion strategies are stupid and you should feel bad for using them. Wild Charge does a massive chunk of damage, though it's not enough for the one-shot. As predicted, Electivire goes for a cross chop into our slot, but since it manages to crit, it still does monstrous damage to Angel. I go for a Protect on the next turn, hoping to bait targets from both my opponents since they certainly see the kill. Crobat successfully takes the bait, and then Arcanine clutches up big time by connecting with his second attack in a row and killing Jupiter's stupid winged mammal. That is extremely lucky. As is Electivire also trying to kill Angel, because it means that Thanos' fluffy pup is around for another turn to bait in Gastrodon. So even though it spells certain doom for Angel, I decide to stay in, and after Arcanine fires off a massive Flare Blitz into Electivire, we take the kill on Gastrodon with an energy ball. Angel's final act before going down to a Thunder Punch.
Oh, he lives! He lives! He lives!
Thanos, buddy, I owe ya. With Snorlax and Bronzong taking the stage, I go for another Protect. Unfortunately, Electivire doesn't fall for that a second time, instead opting to nail Thanos' exposed Chubster with a nasty, super effective cross chop. But the bulky boy barely lives the hit, and since Bronzong took Angel's bait, King Lax gets his revenge on Electivire with a Zen Headbutt. Perugly's 5th on Mars's side, so Snorlax goes down to a Fake Out, but that lets Angel pivot out with a U-turn into Torch, who only has to eat a Psychic from Bronzong. With Staraptor back out, I protect for a turn with Torch and hope that our rival can take the KO with close combat, which he does. Bronzong then goes for a Swagger into Staraptor, which adds a hilarious amount of volatility to this already extremely sketchy matchup. Unfortunately for our foes, the Swagger backfires as Staraptor breaks through confusion and eviscerates Mars's Kangaskhan with a Brave Bird. Sadly, our Flamethrower just barely misses out on the KO against Bronzong, so Thanos' best burb goes down to a Flash Cannon. Way to put the star in Staraptor, buddy. Our Flamethrower did burn, so even after Leftovers recovery, Bronzong falls, Thanos brings in Heracross, and Jupiter sends out Tangrowth as the battle officially becomes a 2v1. And Tangrowth at least gets dusted by a single Flamethrower. Sableye is completely walled by Polaris, and even if she wasn't, Heracross just gets the one-shot with Megahorn anyways. So all that's left is Skuntank. Heracross misses a Megahorn as Polaris eats a Crunch, and then fires off an Earth Power, which activates a Citrus Berry. As a result of the berry, Heracross's next Megahorn just barely misses out on the KO, meaning that after our partner eats a Play Rough, Polaris is free to get the final KO of the fight, winning us the dreaded Spear Pillar multi-battle completely deathless. Wait, no, there was one death, but at least we saved Angel's life. That was a very lucky fight, though I do think I put myself in the best position I could, all things considered. Hopefully that luck follows us into the Distortion World, because the fights against Cyrus are really tough. And I do mean fights. Plural, because in Renegade Platinum, the final showdown against Cyrus starts with a double battle against his Dialga and Palkia, both at level 70, well above the level cap. Thankfully, they're coded to have 0 IVs, but even so, very few Pokemon are able to successfully tank hits from both of these legendary monsters, and none of those Pokemon survive the snap. Anything that doesn't get one-shot by Dialga's Roar of Time gets shredded by Palkia's Hydro Pump. So I went into this expecting some deaths, and perhaps my team kind of reflects that. The strategy I came up with was to lead with Quake the Whiscash and T'Challa, or as his friends call him, T'Chubby the Perugly. Our hefty feline is able to flinch Dialga with a fake out and also bait Palkia into going for Hydro Pump since it always kills. We have a Focus Sash to ensure that we live the turn, but also it means that Quake will always live to hit Dialga with a Choice Specs Earth Power, which isn't enough to get the kill, but is more than enough for T'Chubby's Wake Up Slap to finish off Dialga on the following turn. Of course, this leaves T'Chubby fully exposed to another hit from Palkia, all but ensuring his death. That is, unless I switch Quake out into Dazzler the Luminion, who can direct Palkia's Hydro Pump away from T'Chubby with Storm Drain. Now, Palkia's move is completely random here since we're at 1 HP, but this at least gives my sweet obese boy a small chance at surviving. So, Dazzler comes in, T'Chubby slaps the shit out of the God of Time, and then Palkia actually uses Hydro Pump! T'Chubby freaking lives! Of course, since this is Gen 4 Storm Drain, Dazzler isn't immune to Hydro Pump, so she still takes a massive chunk of damage. But that's actually good, because Palkia now sees a kill on her as well, meaning that it's time to gamble T'Chubby's life once again. Because on the next turn, I switch Dazzler into Moondragon as the Killer Kitty fires off a 200 base power flail. But then Palkia targets Moondragon with a Spatial Rend! T'Chubby lives again! And not just that, but he also gets to take the kill on Palkia with a second flail. T'Chubby stared down two primordial gods and killed them both. There has not, nor will there ever be a cat as great as T'Chubby the Perugly. Since we somehow managed to win that insane matchup deathless, we've got all 6 Pokemon still around as we're instantly forced into the more traditional battle against Cyrus's full team. But coming off the high of T'Chubby ignoring death twice over, I'm feeling on top of the world. Cyrus's Crobat is choice banded, so a simple switch to Polaris on Brave Bird means that we can set up Stealth Rock and then take the kill with a few Power Gems without taking much damage at all. That brings in Gyarados second, so it's off to the Wet Noodle Slayer, who once again uses Haze to keep our foe in check. This time though, we use Rock Climb for damage instead of Toxic. Unfortunately, you need 3 different HMs to access this fight, so Rock Climb had to slot in somewhere. And at the very least, it's a Rock type move in this game, which means that soon enough, Gyarados is Gyara-done. With Honchkrow out third, I go back to Polaris on a Brave Bird. She baits Superpower, which gives me the safe switch to Moondragon, who then proceeds to take the KO with a Moonblast. Fourth is Magnezone, who's trounced by Quake. Let's not forget the Catfish's contribution when we recall the conquests of King T'Chubby the Great. Houndoom is fifth, so it's off to Dazzler, who's holding a Focus Sash. In Renegade Platinum, she's just fast enough to outspeed Houndoom and take the kill with a Surf. So, last but of course not least is Cyrus's Weavile. I switch to T'Chubby on an Aerial Ace, hit him with a Fake Out for respectable chip, and then after some high-tech investigation into the exact amount of HP that Weavile has left, Nebula comes in on a feint attack and takes the kill with a priority Vacuum Wave. Cyrus has been defeated, a king has been crowned, and the world has been saved. You'd think that all of that would be enough for one stream, right? But this dumbass didn't. Instead, he pressed forward. Tired and cocky, a terrible combination. In the Sunyshore City gym, I meet the Antichrist. No, not Volkner, Ace Trainer Destiny. A fitting name since her destiny is to ruin my life. She's got 4 electric types, which based on my team shouldn't be a problem. Most of the trainers in the Sunyshore City gym are fully swept by dust with a choice band, so I really wasn't all that concerned. Destiny's lead Raichu, for example, is killed with a single Earthquake, as is her second Pokemon, Lantern. But third is this dumb motherfucker, Electric Dark-type Luxray. Because of Intimidate, we don't get the one-shot, so I gotta switch out. And with Luxray's moveset of Iron Tail, Night Slash, and Wild Charge, I rather quickly see that I don't have a single Pokemon that resists all 3 of those moves. I start with a switch to Sandwoman, who's got decent defense, but it doesn't matter since Luxray crits with Night Slash. That's bad because now he'll go for a random move. I hope that it's just another Night Slash as I bring in Moondragon, but it's an Iron Tail. Thankfully, that doesn't crit, so Moondragon lives, but now I've got to switch out again, this time to Electro the Plusle on another now resisted Iron Tail. But that one gets a defense drop, which means that another one will kill. My plan was to Encore Luxray into Iron Tail, hope he doesn't crit, switch to Quake, and then take the kill with 2 Earthquakes. But now, my only hope at surviving this fight deathless is that Luxray misses Electro. Encore comes out, and Luxray does miss Iron Tail, but as you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, that ends up not mattering at all. Because on the following turn, I switch to Quake on another Iron Tail, which gets another defense drop. Then on the next turn, Iron Tail connects again and gets another defense drop. Which means that by the time Quake has killed Luxray, she's sitting at 49 HP. Now, thankfully, we didn't get crit on that last Iron Tail, but Destiny still has 1 Pokemon left, and it's a Jolteon, which is faster than my entire team. So let me be extremely clear here. The only way to win this battle, like actually just not wipe, is to sack a Pokemon so that I get a safe switch into Quake. Then I have to pray that Quake doesn't get crit by Shadow Ball so that we can take the kill with Earthquake. I decide that Electro's gonna be the sacrifice, and he dutifully obliges. So I bring in Quake. And again, if I get crit here, I wipe. I lose this run to Ace Trainer Destiny if Jolteon crits Shadow Ball. Actually, that was a low roll, so even a crit wouldn't have killed, but still, that was way too close. And I was fuming mad. At the end of the day, is it a big deal that we lost Electro? No, there's no world where I bring a Plusle to the Elite Four. But I'm still furious that I managed to go completely deathless against Cyrus, and yet somehow almost threw the entire run against a freaking Luxray. Bad prep, recklessness, and exhaustion almost lost me the entire challenge here. So this is yet another reminder from an overworked YouTuber that sometimes taking a break is okay. The good news is that Volkner is much less stressful. X23 breaks his lead Jolteon's Focus Sash with a Fake Out before switching to Dust on a Thunderbolt. With a Choice Scarf, she outspeeds this Jolteon and gets the clean KO. Against Rotom Wash, I switch to Floor the Parasect, who has Dry Skin. Spore and Seed Bomb make quick work of Volkner's first Possessed Appliance, bringing in his second next. So that's a switch to Quake, who then uses Rest, Sleep Talk, and Surf to get the safe KO. Luxray is fourth, but this one is far less scary and we are much better prepared. I switch to Nebula on a Crunch, and since Volkner's Luxray is Choice Banded, I can stay in and get the kill with a few Drain Punches. So Raichu's fifth and Floor Walls him completely as well. Spore, Seed Bomb, and Leftovers Recovery again keep my Fungus at nearly full HP as the mouse falls, and Volkner is quickly left with his final Pokemon, Electivire. I first switch to Nebula on an Ice Punch, which then baits Wild Charge to give me the safe switch into Dust. With the Stealth Rock chip, Earthquake is a solid roll to kill, but it is still a roll. So if we miss out, Dust is definitely dead. Fortunately, she manages to pull through and get the KO, so Electivire falls, and we've obtained the 8th and final gym badge of Renegade Platinum. There are a handful of tricky battles in Victory Road, as well as mini-boss fights against Marley, Dawn, and our rival Thanos, but we make it through each and every one of them completely deathless. So as we prepare to face off against the Pokemon League, we're sitting at just 4 deaths. But the Renegade Platinum Elite Four is so tricky that just one misplay could shoot our death count into the double digits and end the run. See, in this ROM hack, all 4 members of the Elite Four and Cynthia have 4 possible teams. Which one they use is completely random, and there's no way to tell what you'll get until the start of each battle. This means that you need to prepare for the possibility of 20 different teams, which when you only have 6 Pokemon is an absolute nightmare. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I did calcs for an entire workday until I finally settled on my final team of 6. And even then, there's a few teams and specific Pokemon that I simply do not have the best answers to. But without any further ado, let's break down our squad of potential champions. First is Modok the Masquerain, one of our first encounters, but one that's seen very little use after the early game. He makes his return for the Elite Four team as our surrogate love disc. In Renegade Platinum, Masquerain is Bug Water type, and with buffs to her special attack, speed, and I guess also special defense, Modok will be our go-to speedy water type sweeper for Bertha and Flint. Next is Taskmaster the Ninjask. That's right, I'm bringing 2 Hoennian bugs to the Elite Four, baby. This one is extremely fast, and as we've seen throughout the run, with his ground type immunity, Taskmaster is great for pivoting and dealing solid damage with U-turn. Third is Nebula the Poliwrath. With Water Absorb granting my team another immunity, she's an all-around bulky mon that fits well into any team comp. She also walls specific threats like Aaron's Scizor and Cynthia's Milotic that can otherwise cause the rest of my team some serious trouble. Fourth is Moondragon the Altaria. Her Dragon Fairy typing is phenomenal, as is getting access to Recovery with Roost. Her diverse move pool makes her essential to dealing with Aaron's Bug types, Lucian's Gallade, and Cynthia's terrifying Garchomp. Fifth is Polaris the Probopass, who as a result of cutting many of the late game battles, hasn't really gotten a chance yet to truly shine in this video. But her fantastic typing, which pairs perfectly with Taskmaster, makes her a must bring, especially against Aaron's Bug types and Lucian's Psychic types. Last is Aunt May the Sableye, the newest addition to our team, caught in Victory Road. Despite having the absolutely atrocious ability Stall, which makes her move last in her speed bracket with no benefit whatsoever, Aunt May's triple immunities are vital to dealing with Lucian's extremely powerful psychic types. Magic Guard instead of Stall would have been a significantly better ability, but what she lacks in being able to hold a life orb without taking chip damage, she makes up for with an attack IV of 31. So there you have it. Can this Mickey Mouse Toontown squad of goofballs become champions of Renegade Platinum? It's time to find out. First up is Aaron, and I'm really hoping to see anything but Venomoth as a lead. It ends up being Scyther, indicating his fourth team of Scyther, Yanmega, Pinsir, Scizor, Flygon, and Drapion. No Armaldo is great to see. Against Scyther, Polaris is free to set up Stealth Rock and then take the kill with Power Gem. Thanks to leftovers, we've taken very little damage as Pinsir comes in second, and we can get back even more HP with a turn of Protect. Pinsir sees the kill with both Close Combat and Earthquake here, so it's a 50-50 chance of either move. As a result, I switch to Nebula on an Earthquake. She now always baits Close Combat, so that means I can switch to Moondragon. And with the defense drop, we can use our Choice Scarf to outspeed and take the kill with a perfectly accurate 100 base power fly. That brings in Scizor third, so it's off to Nebula on an Iron Head. With the speed advantage, leftovers, Protect, Drain Punch, and ultimately Close Combat, we can pretty reliably win this matchup and stay at over 50% HP. So Yanmega is fourth, but he's fodder for Polaris. His attacks do nothing and our power gems get a clean KO, especially after the damage from Stealth Rock. Fifth is Flygon, who's Bug Dragon type in this game, and also has had his stats moved around to be a pretty nasty special attacker. Not totally sure how I feel about that, but because Flygon still knows Earth Power, I can switch to Taskmaster for free. Then U-turn does a solid chunk of damage and grants me a safe switch to Moondragon on a Fire Blast. So with that, a Dragon Claw gets the KO and leaves Aaron with his pesky Drapion. He no longer knows Swords Dance, so that's nice, but he is still holding a Scope Lens. The plan here is to switch between Polaris on Cross Poisons and Taskmaster on Earthquakes. With U-turn we can do solid damage, so theoretically just a few switches ought to do it. Unfortunately, it's not quite that easy, because as I bring Taskmaster in for a second time, Drapion goes for a Night Slash instead of an Earthquake. Thankfully, my sweet baby boy is holding a failsafe Focus Sash, so he's not dead. But this was definitely not in the plan. See, apparently high critical hit rate moves like Night Slash have some AI quirk that allows enemy Pokemon to go for them even if they aren't the highest rolls. In the moment, that was brand spanking new information to me, so now we gotta steer, and unfortunately, it means dodging some crits. Since Taskmaster is at 1 HP, Drapion is now going for a random move, either Night Slash, Cross Poison, or Aqua Tail. With another chip from U-Turn, Drapion should fall in range to an Earthquake from Moondragon, but coming in on a random Cross Poison will kill her. So instead, I gotta go to Polaris, who only dies if Drapion pulls Aqua Tail and crits, which he does not. Since it was Night Slash, hindsight says that going straight into Moondragon would have won me the match, but of course it was totally random. So now we gotta risk the crit on Earthquake. If Drapion goes Night Slash, we're fine. Even a sniper boosted critical hit doesn't kill Moondragon from this range. But if Drapion goes for Earthquake and crits, which with Scope Lens will happen 12.5% of the time, Moondragon is absolutely dead.
Please, 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 please don't make it end here. Please don't let it end here. Don't let it end here. Please, 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 please don't let it end here. Okay. Okay. Okay.
With that clutch survival, Moondragon's free to get the kill on Drapion with Earthquake and win us the very first battle of the Elite Four. That was way too close for comfort. Next up is Bertha and her ground types. She can have two different leads, Hippowdon or Tyranitar, and we pull Hippowdon, indicating either Team 1 or Team 2. They have slightly different routings, but the first step against both is getting a clean kill with an Expert Belt boosted Surf from Modok. That's important because it prevents Hippowdon from setting up Stealth Rock. Bertha brings in Glysaur second, which reveals that she's got Team 1, consisting of Hippowdon, Glysaur, Whiscash, Golem, Donphan, and Rhyperior. The good news is that this team is extremely easy. The bad news is that it requires completely stalling Glysaur out of his PP. And since his attacking moves are Earthquake and Wing Attack, the latter of which has 35 PP, this takes quite a while. Earthquake is stalled out by switching between Polaris and Taskmaster. This time there's no issues whatsoever. Once Glysaur's stuck using Wing Attack, I set up Stealth Rock with Polaris, switch to Moondragon to get rid of the Sandstorm via Sunny Day, and then go back to Polaris where I spam failed Stealth Rock for what feels like an eternity. But once Wing Attack is completely dry, it's now safe to go back to Modok and take the kill with a Surf. You might be wondering why I went through all that trouble, but here's why. Modok can sweep the rest of Bertha's team. Golem's Focus Sash gets broken by Stealth Rock, and we drown her with a Surf. Rhyperior is quad weak to water moves, so we drown her with a Surf. Whiscash is not weak to water moves, but she is weak to grass moves, which, yep, Modok can learn. Oh, and by the way, Moondragon is holding an XP share in this fight so that she can get to level 77 before the fight against Cynthia. This is essential to ensuring that she can outspeed Garchomp when holding a Choice Scarf, and since the level cap ends at the start of the Elite Four, this is a-okay according to my personal rule set. Anywho, Modok can also freely waterboard Donphan for a guaranteed KO since we removed the Sandstorm and turned off her Sand Veil ability. So that's Bertha defeated, and we're on to the back half of the Elite Four. Flint is probably my least confident matchup, and he's got a few teams that are extremely challenging to fight against. His lead is Ninetales, which means that we're fighting either Team 1 or Team 3, with the only difference in the leads being that on Team 1, the Fire Fairy Vixen knows Confuse Ray, and on Team 3, she knows Hypnosis. Both moves add a massive amount of volatility to the match, so my hope is that Flint just sticks with attacking moves. Modok's holding a Choice Scarf, which he uses to instantly set up a Rain Dance. That means that Solar Beam is no longer a one-hit move, and it'll only do half damage as I switch to Polaris on the following turn. Ninetales then opts for an Overheat, which also only does 50% thanks to the rain, meaning that we comfortably set up a Stealth Rock. But this right here is the scary turn, because I need to switch back to Modok, and if he comes in on a Confuse Ray or a Hypnosis, things are gonna get scary. But Flint just goes for Solar Beam. I think that's another move that has some bizarre AI quirks, and here it comes in unbelievably clutch, because with Modok in for free, he can take the kill with a rain-boosted Surf. And as if that couldn't have gone any better, Flint sends in Flareon next, revealing that we're facing off against Team 1, aka the fully Fire-type team. no Lopunny, and no Dragon-type Charizard, which means that MODOK is free to drown each and every one of Flint's remaining 5 Pokemon. Wait, actually, that's not true. His last Pokemon, Houndoom, is holding his own Choice Scarf, and Dark Pulse will crit kill MODOK. Fortunately, Moondragon can easily tank the hit, though Houndoom elects to just use Solar Beam again for some reason. So after shrugging that off, we take the kill with an Earthquake, and victory is ours. That just leaves Lucian, which means it's time for Aunt May to take center stage. Again, there are a few teams that are trickier than others, but as long as we don't see Alakazam as a lead, we should be Alright, well, this is objectively the hardest of Lucian's 4 teams because of his Explosion Metagross. Team 1 also does have Metagross, but the other Pokemon are much easier to deal with on that team than this one. Here we gotta deal with Alakazam, Gardevoir, Exeggutor, Starmie, and Gallade. Not fun, and things immediately go off the rails as Lucian hard switches his lead Alakazam into Gardevoir. This is presumably because Alakazam's only attacking moves are Psychic, Aura Sphere, and Counter, but I thought he still might try to use Thunder Wave. Anyways, this messes up my routing a little bit, but for now it's fine. Against Aunt May, Gardevoir wants to use Moonblast, which doesn't do much to Polaris, and against Polaris, she wants to use Aura Sphere, which doesn't do anything to Aunt May. And each time Aunt May comes in, she can use Fake Out for some chip damage until Gardevoir falls into range of a priority Shadow Sneak. Once Gardevoir goes down, Starmie comes in next, and they now want to use Hydro Pump, which gives me a safe switch into Nebula. And thanks to Nebula's fighting type, we now have a safe switch back to Aunt May on a Psychic. So once again, Fake Outs whittle away at Starmie's HP, though we don't need to do it for quite as long because they take super effective damage from Sucker Punch, which kills from much higher HP. That brings in Exeggutor next, so I hard switch to Taskmaster. Unfortunately, we come in on a Sleep Powder instead of a Giga Drain, so I gotta immediately go to MODOK on a Psychic, who's holding a Focus Sash to ensure we don't get killed by a crit. With that, a quad-effective Bug Buzz gets the KO and brings Alakazam back in. So it's back to Aunt May on a Psychic, and then this time, predicting the switch, I nail Metagross with a Shadow Sneak. But here's where things get a little sketchy. The plan is to again Fake Out Psycho with Aunt May. The problem is that Aunt May baits Meteor Mash, which is extremely powerful coming off of Iron Fist Muscle Band Metagross. Nebula can kind of tank the hits, especially with Leftovers and Protect, but one critical hit here and we're in a bit of trouble. I mean, the only thing worse than a critical hit would be an attack boost. No! Alright, well, now we're in a lot of trouble. Honestly, I didn't ever have a great answer into this Metagross, but hoping that 5 Meteor Mashes didn't crit or get the 10% attack boost was probably not my best idea. At this point, I'm gonna need to make a sacrifice here. Aunt May is too essential to Lucian's remaining 2 Pokemon. Nebula is our only teammate that deals with Cynthia's Milotic. Polaris is necessary for baiting moves from some of Cynthia's other scary threats. Taskmaster is the only Pokemon that naturally outspeeds Garchomp, and Moondragon is our designated Garchomp killer with Moonblast. So unfortunately, that just leaves MODOK. He is important for one of Cynthia's teams that has an Electric Dragon Ampharos, but other than that, he's already done his job and is therefore the most logical sacrifice. Plus, bringing him in will lower Metagross's attack with Intimidate. As a reminder, this thing is Iron Fist, not Clear Body. So, with a heavy heart, I bring in MODOK, the king of the Elite Four, reduced to a sacrificial lamb. Oh shit! I don't know what to tell ya. My Pokemon simply refuse to die. And even though it is still objectively the correct play to sacrifice MODOK here, I just can't do it. Call it sentimentality, call it throwing for content, call it what you want, yeah? I'm saving MODOK's life. With a U-turn, she does great chip to Metagross and brings Aunt May back in with a lucky Zen headbutt. Meteor Mash crit there is probably game over, but whatever. With that, we can do just a little bit more damage with Fake Out to bring Metagross low enough that they're in range to a Sucker Punch high roll. The Mechanical Beast's HP bar drops, but is it enough to get the KO? It is! And with that, the victory over Lucian is imminent. Gallade comes out but never threatens Aunt May with the KO, meaning that she can stay in and hit him with a Shadow Sneak before eating a Leaf Blade. It's a roll to kill here, so not leaving anything to chance, I bring in Moondragon on a Night Slash. And with a Choice Scarf, she outspeeds to take out Gallade with a Fly. So all that's left is Alakazam, which means that Aunt May can come out to take a victory lap and get the KO with one last critical hit Shadow Sneak. We've officially defeated the Elite Four Deathless and earned an audience with the champion of the Pokemon League, Cynthia. Once again, she's got 4 completely different teams, and some are harder than others. But one way or another, this all ends right here, right now. Let's do this. Cynthia leads with Clefable, revealing the unfortunate news that this is team number 4. Clefable, Roserade, Mismagius, Lopunny, Milotic, and Garchomp. This team is brutal. Life Orb Lopunny and Wise Glasses Mismagius suck to fight against. Fortunately, Clefable's only attacking move is Moonblast, which means that Polaris is safe to come in, set up Stealth Rock, and then stall her out with Rest and Protect. After that, I can bring in Aunt May, fresh from her murder spree against Lucian's team. I've taught her Brick Break to continually shatter Clefable's screens and slowly but surely whittle her down. Eventually, we come out on top and Clefable falls. That brings in the awful Mismagius, but since Aunt May is holding a Focus Sash, we're free to stay in and hit her with a Shadow Sneak. And since it does over 50%, after tanking a Moonblast, Aunt May nets another kill. But sadly, this is where her journey ends. Roserade comes in next, and a Protect reveals that she's locked herself into Choice Scarf Energy Ball. And unfortunately, I don't have a reliable switch-in. Taskmaster does have a quad resistance, but Aerial Ace, even with our Choice Band, doesn't get the KO. And I need him as close to full HP as possible to better deal with Lopunny. So the logical, albeit tragic choice is to hit Roserade with a Shadow Sneak and let Aunt May go down. You were a late addition to the team, but an absolute hero. Rest well, my queen. With that, I bring in Taskmaster, and Aerial Ace now successfully gets the kill thanks to Aunt May's chip. That brings in Milotic, so I bring in Nebula for one last tango with the Wet Noodle. Since Milotic only has Ice Beam and Hydro Pump, it's extremely safe to stall out her PP. All we gotta do is avoid freeze on the very first Ice Beam so that we can use Rest, and then we can't even get frozen.
Yeah, okay. Oh my god. Okay, well.
Believe it or not, this actually isn't the end of the world. In fact, Nebula can just conserve PP this way, since even if Milotic crits to like a million Ice Beams, we can always switch out to Polaris, and then back into Nebula on a Hydro Pump to get back some HP from Water Absorb. Still, I can't help but be just a little annoyed that Nebula stays frozen for 8 full turns. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Once Milotic is completely out of attacking moves and rest PP, I can go to Taskmaster and kill her with a few Aerial Aces. That brings in Lopunny next, so I switch to Polaris on an Ice Punch. And after a guaranteed wake up from rest, I protect as Lopunny crashes from a high jump kick. So then it's back to Taskmaster on a quad resisted high jump kick, which still does almost 50%. Like I said, sacking Aunt May was the right play, because now we can kill Lopunny with a choice-banded Aerial Ace, leaving Cynthia with her final Pokemon, the mighty Garchomp. But this 2-bit Neanderthal's got nothing I'm not ready for. I switch to Polaris on a Stone Edge that completely misses. Classic Garchomp. This lets me switch back to Taskmaster on an Earthquake and then deal a sizable chunk of chip with U-Turn. The goal is to repeat this just a few times until Garchomp is in range to a Choice Scarfed Moonblast from Moondragon. Polaris comes back out on a resisted Outrage, so I protect for a turn to let Garchomp get confused from fatigue. Then it's back to Taskmaster as the dummy tragically hits himself in confusion. So now it's time to U-turn into Moondragon for the KO, but Taskmaster's got his own plans because he goes rogue and cleanly kills Garchomp himself with a critical hit U-turn. Which means that we took out the strongest Pokemon in the entire game with a freaking Ninjask, winning us not just the battle against Cynthia, but the entire run. That was an unbelievably fun challenge. I had a blast using all these quirky random Pokemon, and I can't wait to do my next Snaplock, whether that's in a vanilla game or some other ROM hack. Let me know what game you want to see Thanos terrorize next by commenting down below. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I know that your views aren't guaranteed, so it means a lot that people are still tuning in week after week. I've been really proud of my last few videos, and I'm just so lucky to have such supportive viewers. If you enjoyed watching, it'd be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know. But be sure to follow me on Twitch to keep up with streams of my future ROM hack challenges. Against my better judgment, I'm playing Pokemon Run and Bun right now, and I'm having a blast. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always, always, always play around the critical hit.